Hey guys, Julian here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make techno like Alex Stein. As usual, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, all of that from this video is available right at the top of the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And yeah, let's get started. Run 128 BPM. The first sound we have here is the lead, which sounds like this. So the key of this track is actually G sharp minor, which you can see we do have a G sharp here. And what's happening is basically it's this really simple pattern with just 4 notes. It's just G sharp, F sharp, which would be the minor 7th, E, and then D sharp, which is the 5th. And then that E is just 1 note up from the 5th there. But yeah, it's a pretty simple pattern. The idea here is that we're sort of like playing a few notes, and then once we get up to the G sharp, that's when it's like, okay, this is the key we're in. And that's reflected because if you listen to this bass growl underneath it, you know, it lets you know which note is going to be the actual like root note, because you hear those 2 G sharps. That's what note this bass growl is playing, is G sharp, since that is the root note. Once those 2 line up, there you go, that's how you know. So yeah, that bass growl is kind of working together with this lead here. But that's the idea behind this, is that we're working our way up to the actual like root note. And then for the sound with this one, it's made with wavetables. So this is actually just 2 saw waves at the same octave. They're detuned a little bit, and the second one is turned down a little bit in volume as well. And then those are going into a low pass filter, which you can see I've got this amp envelope here. If you look at the matrix, we have that on the filter frequency. And then I'm also using this LFO here, you can see, on the pitch. And what this is doing is it's creating this sort of like buzzy, it's like that effect that you're hearing, but then I just have it happening at a very, very small amount. You can see it's only 5.3%. But if I turn that off, there's without it. And then with it, you can hear it does create that cool sort of like buzzy super saw effect. So that's the purpose of that. Then we just have a bit of chorus, which is spreading the sound out a bit, as well as some echo and reverb. These are all giving the sound some space. You can see the echo is playing 16th notes, and then I have it on the ping pong setting. So this is actually creating the most like stereo width in the sound. If I turn this off, you don't get that sort of like that happening in the background. That's panning around. That's what this echo is doing. So yeah, and then the reverb set like that. Then I just have a bit of drum bus to fatten the sound up. There's without it. And with it. And then we have this auto pan as well, which is just kind of simulating this being sidechained to the kick. It's making it so that this is kind of bouncing off of the kick like this. And then finally, I just have a high pass filter cutting out the lows, and that's it for the lead. From there, we have this little bass growl, which sounds like this. So like I said, this is just playing G sharp. That's how this works, is you would have, you know, your lead kind of bouncing around, and then the bass growl is just playing the root note of the key. And for the sound with this one, this is also made with wavetables. So wavetables is really good for this style of techno. You can see I made this actually just using 1 saw wave here. It's going into a low pass filter. The amp envelope set like that. It's really simple. And then we just have a bit of unison here, which you can see I've got the voices all the way up to 8. The amount's at 79%. So this is pretty intense. And that's what's really making this like that big kind of like chorusy bass. If I turn this off, you know, it just sounds like a saw wave, but with the unison, that's how you get that big, growly kind of bass texture. Then we just have a bit of chorus, which spreads it out even more. Here's without that. And with it, you can hear it adds that extra bit of like kind of washing it out a bit. And then we just have a drum bus to fatten the sound up and make it really full and big and filling out the mix in the low mid-range. Then we have this auto pan, which is simulating the side chain again. just like with the lead makes it so that it's bouncing off of the kick. And then finally, I just have a high pass filter. And something I'll say with this one is it's important to pay attention to where you high pass it, because if I play this with the kick, it fits pretty nicely. You know, we have our kick and our rumble, and then the bass does fit into that. However, if we move this high pass down even just a little bit, like to there, see how all of a sudden the bass is clashing with the rumble? So there we go. You just gotta make sure you high pass that at the right spot to make it fit in with the kick. That's the secret to making this work while also having a rumble kick. And yeah, that's it for the bass growl. After that, we have the kick. So this is your standard rumble kick. We have the main, just punch of the kick. And then what's happening here is I have that exact same sample. You can see I've just brought it in to a simpler here, and then what's happening is we're low passing it, and then it's playing straight 16th notes. So this is going like, and then we low pass that, and it creates this long rumbly bass. And so this is a really nice and simple way to create a rumble bass without doing just the standard delay or reverb. But what this does is it creates this nice, very full sounding low end, because it's constantly that same like happening, and it makes it so that you're not just like listening to, like if you use the delay, a lot of times it can kind of be like like the first hit is really hard and then it gets quieter. This gives you one solid bass note the whole way through to really like drive it. And yeah, and then I just have a bit of drum bass on that. This helps to kind of bring out the low end. Here's without it. And with it, that boom in particular, you can see I tune it to G sharp, and yeah, it just really helps to like make this one solid fat bass note. Then we have a compressor, which is side chaining it to the kick. And then finally, I just have this EQ8 here, which is just cutting out a little bit of space as well. This is important because it's gonna clash there at 100 hertz. You can hear that. And that would clash with the main kick. But by cutting it there, it solves that problem. Then I have those in a group together, which is a bit of saturation and a bit of EQ. Here is without those things. And then with them, so you can hear the saturation is important because it's gluing these together and kind of making it sound like one fat rumble kick, you know. It fills in that space a little bit between the bass and the kick. And then the EQ here is just helping to kind of boost up the mid-range and the highs a little bit to really bring that click out in the full track. You know, it makes it so that you're hearing the proper amount of punch in the kick in the final track, and it doesn't get lost to where you're just going to hear the doom, 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 but you also get that over top of it as well. And yeah, so then after that we have the cymbals and percussion. So I'll start with the tambourine. It sounds like this. This is a really straightforward tambourine, just playing straight 16 notes. The idea here is that I'll play it with the other hi-hats. You can hear these other hi-hats are a little bit sharper, because we have a shaker and then this one main hi-hat, which is pretty big. So if you take this kind of softer tambourine sound and just have that playing straight 16th notes under it, you get a nice contrast. And it makes it so you're hearing something very bright that's going tick, 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 tick. But then the stuff that's more in the mid-range is stuff that's really doing like the meat of the sound. After that we have this little percussion. So what this is it's actually this sound. And what I've done here is I've taken it and I pitched it down and then I low passed it. And we get just like this sort of like mid-rangey percussion. And so this is meant to just kind of create a bit of extra like background movement with the percussion, you know? If I turn it off and we have just the cymbals, it's not quite as intense of a groove. And so we had this just kind of thrown in there in the middle of everything. So that's the idea behind this. And you can also kind of hear it playing off of the lead. You having that rhythm happening is all coming together with every other element in the track to make this groove that you hear. So that's the idea behind that percussion. Then we have this ride. And so this is your standard sort of techno ride. You can see it's just going like that. And then what's happening with this one is I'm high passing it quite a bit. I also pitched it down -1. But I'm high passing it a lot because if we turn that off, you get a lot of that like stuff in the middle. But if you high pass it, you get just the highs. And that's really all we need from this layer, is just to be that bright high end kind of over top of everything. And then I also have this echo on here. And so what this is doing is, you can see it's at 108 milliseconds in the left ear, 47.2 milliseconds in the right ear. And then I have the dry wet up, not too high, but what's happening here is this is just creating this wide stereo image on the sound. So here's without this. You can hear it's just right down the middle. And then with it, it kind of makes it a bit softer and more airy, but it makes this just fit into the perfect place into the mix, because everything else is pretty much straight down the center. At least in terms of the percussion. So if I turn off this echo and play the ride, you can hear it doesn't stand out as much. When we turn it on, all of a sudden this ride is spread out. And now we're getting the ride in one place and the hi-hats in a different place in the mix. And it makes it stand out more on its own. So that's the idea behind that. Then after that we have the main hi-hat, which is just 2 layers. We have this one and this one. So just kind of getting the best of both. The main thing with this is to keep in mind like the type of sound you want. You want this fat, punchy hi-hat like this. It's gonna sit really nicely on top of the kick. Like, as much as your kick is punching, you also want this to punch. So it's more like doonch, 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 and not just doonch, you know, with like a little tiny hi-hat like that. You really want this fat, mid-rangey punch in your hi-hat. And then the last cymbal we have down here is the shaker, which you can hear. It's just playing like this. So this is just playing every other 16th notes. It kind of matches up with the tambourine. Because of the contrast there, we're getting, the tambourine is very soft and high-end based, and this is much like more rough and mid-range based. So then you put those together, and this is how we're able to have multiple layers with these hi-hats without having it all clash. It's like everything is playing something completely different and fitting into a completely different place. And that's the idea there with the shaker and with these different hi-hats. And then on the group of all this percussion, we just got a bit of drum bass and a bit of an EQ to kind of glue them together. So here's without these, and then with them. So you can see why this is that last step that you need to just make all your cymbals and percussion really stand out, really feel full together, and, you know, fit better into the mix as well. Because now everything is a lot more even and a lot more full sounding, and it has an even texture where it can all kind of contend with these other very powerful elements in the mix. So that's the idea with the drum bass. And then the EQ is just to cut out some lows and boost a tiny little bit of high end to make it a bit sharper. And yeah, so that is how you make these hi-hats and cymbals, and that is also how you would make the style, and that's going to be it for this video, guys. So, I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the full project file and samples, MIDI, presets, all of that from this video right at the top of the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. Thank you so much, guys. You guys are killing it with the support lately. All the love on these videos really means a lot, especially with all this craziness that we're dealing with right now. I love you all, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.